As a dungeon master, I have been known to describe myself as a vibes girly rather than a mechanics girl. I don't have an encyclopedic ability to cross-reference 1,000 spells and abilities, and I definitely don't have a knack for math. That's why I always carry a sword, to help with division. The 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide spent 5 whole pages trying to systematize the process of creating a monster from scratch, and it still gave me flashbacks to crying over math homework at the kitchen table at 11 p.m. It's been 20 years, but the trauma remains. So what's a vibes girly to do when she needs homebrew? Because in my experience, leaning into the narrative and aesthetic and tone of D&D often calls for creating your own creatures. I've had to learn tricks and shortcuts over the years to allow me to homebrew without having to build a stat block from the ground up. Today, I'm gonna share some of those shortcuts with you. If you're looking for a deep dive on everything there is to know about monster design, do I look like the Dungeon Dudes to you?
And we are the Dungeon Dudes.
You know what? Touche. But if you want to be able to whip up a fun monster and then get back to writing a complete seasonal drink menu for your interplanar Fae cocktail bar, then you're in the right place. We'll start with the simplest method and the only one covered in the DM's guide, reskinning. When we talk about reskinning or reflavoring a monster, it may sound like cooking, but it's really more like microwaving last night's monster so it doesn't go to waste. It basically just means that we're taking an existing stat block and making small adjustments to it. This is definitely the easiest way to homebrew, and I think it's a great place for beginners to start. Both the 2014 and the new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide include instructions for this. The 2014 guide has more math and tables, and the 2024 guide is more drag and drop, with a list of example traits that you can attach to an existing monster. If 2014 is a beginner's guide to carpentry, 2024 is IKEA instructions. Use the provided hex wrench to add wings to your direwolf. Just don't forget to put down a blanket first or it'll get all scratched. My method is a little less systematic. We start with a concept and a stat block. Those can go in either order. Maybe you have an idea in your head already, so you pick a stat block that has a relevant set of abilities. For example, let's say that you're running a horror Alice in Wonderland campaign and you want to create a Mad Hatter monster, just a completely unhinged dude. Maybe you choose the Gibbering Mouther stat block to start with, because it has this ability that forces people to make wisdom saves to resist its incoherent babbling. It's the same save you have to make when you log into Twitter these days. I wouldn't risk it. Or you can go the other direction, where you pick an interesting stat block and then brainstorm ways to reimagine it. We'll use the Cloaker as an example. These are creatures from the Underdark who are really skilled at camouflage and evasion, and smother their victims by biting them and then wrapping their wings around them. Their whole thing is that they look just like a cloak when they're hanging on the wall. Gotta train adventurers not to touch those cloaks. It's like somebody on the design team had their coat stolen once and never got over it. One of the simplest and quickest ways to reskin a monster is just to change its creature type or damage type. Like a Fae Cloaker might be covered in leaves and flowers for camouflage, and its moan might be a beautiful song that charms instead of frightens. A Fire Cloaker might be inconspicuous on the outside but have a red-hot glowing belly that burns you with fire damage. Like a pizza roll. They taste so good, but they hurt so bad. These kinds of reskins are certainly more creative than just using the Cloaker as is. Plus, they're easy enough that you can even pull it off on the fly, mid-game. But it's still pretty likely that experienced players will recognize it as a Cloaker, which is fine if that's what you're going for. But if you push your reimagining a little further, a reskin can become downright invisible. I find that a good place to start is identifying the creature's core abilities, the ones that are unique from other monsters. Their USP, if you will. That's an industry term. It stands for unique scary power. In this case, I'd say the main feature is the attach action, where they bite and blind their target, and the secondary one is their sneakiness. Once we know that, we can start thinking of other ways that a monster could attach itself to a creature and blind it, or other reasons that a creature might be super good at hiding and dodging. What if instead of attach, meaning to wrap around the target, the creature is a ghost, and it attaches by occupying the same space as you? It blinds you the same way the ghost itself was blinded, a gleaming golden crown, now visible on the target's head, melting down their face, Viserys Targaryen style. Yes, I know it's been 15 years, I'm still not over it. Instead of taking piercing damage from the Cloaker's bite, you take fire damage from the molten gold. It's good at hiding and misdirecting because it's a ghost, it can make itself transparent. A lot of times my concept comes from thinking of a fun idea for one specific feature. Once you have that, it's just a matter of going through the whole stat block and seeing what else needs to change. You definitely don't need to tweak every feature. In most cases, just changing knowing how you describe it is enough. It's like when they renamed that fish called the slime head so they could call it pan-seared orange ruffy and charge $40 for it at a restaurant called something like Thistle and Bone. For example, the cloaker has a tail attack, just a melee slashing damage thing. So maybe our ghost prince has a sword, or we change it to bludgeoning damage and he has a jeweled scepter. The cloaker has a moan attack that frightens people, which already sounds pretty on brand for a spooky ghost, so we could probably leave it as is. Or maybe he's making tortured cries demanding the return of the throne he was born to. Classic Nepo baby. If I describe that ghost prince, nobody is gonna clock that I just reskinned an angry piece of outerwear. This monster feels completely new, even though when you zoom out and look at what we've actually changed here, it's really not much. The size and creature type, the damage type for attach, and I guess the languages. Other than that, our ghost prince is basically ready to go. But hang on, don't get started reskinning just yet. I have a couple warnings. Just stuff that you should look out for that might make your monster stronger or weaker than you intended. First, be careful when messing with ability scores. It might seem harmless to raise one stat and lower another, but ability scores affect more than just one number. They can affect hit points, armor class, attack rolls, and more. This is especially noticeable on lower CR monsters. Last weekend, I changed the constitution score of a CR 1/4 creature from 13 to 16, and then realized I had effectively doubled its hit points. Healers hate her, the one weird trick they don't want you to know. This is why the monster manual advises you to stick to changing up a creature's mental stats, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, and avoid messing with its physical ones, strength, dexterity, constitution. If you want to make it easy on yourself, try to pick a stat block that already has similar strengths to what you're going for. That should help you avoid accidentally making your monster too strong or too weak. Second, keep in mind that damage types aren't totally interchangeable. Players sometimes have abilities that tie to specific damage types, so changing slashing to necrotic might ruin your barbarian's day, and changing radiant to acid might give your black dragonborn some frankly unearned confidence. Don't get too big for your britches, buddy. You'll be dead before the elf in the party can legally rent a carriage. But Ginny, you might be saying, reskinning a monster is too simple. I want to go full Dr. Frankenstein and take the pieces of multiple monsters and stitch them together into some grotesque parody of life. First of all, that's a repulsive violation of the natural order, and your hubris will surely end in destruction. Second of all, I was about to get to that, but first, a brief word from today's sponsor. All right, we will get started in 5. Anybody want a drink? I just got the Adventurer's Guide to Alchemy from Misfit Hobbies. There's cocktails and mocktails in here. Sure, I'll have the Sylvan Spirit. Shame you're headed into that elven ruin. Nobody who does ever comes back. I rather liked you. Wait, what is happening? Oh, sorry. This isn't just a novelty cocktail book. It's an immersive role-playing tool. It has a companion adventure book full of encounters, enemies, and story hooks tied to each drink. So it's like D&D meets mixology? Well, it's system agnostic, so you can use it with any fantasy RPG. There are some fun cocktail books out there, but this is more than that. It's designed to get you fully immersed in your games, all the way down to your taste buds. Man, this is so cool. Where did you even find this? It just launched on Kickstarter. You can get either or both books in print or PDF. Plus, there's even an add-on book with cocktails made with tabletop creators. It's at the link in the description. This was delicious, by the way. Can I try the Eye of the Beholder next? Sure, if you're in a hurry to die screaming. Can't I just make you a nice little potion of healing? Okay, back to playing God. If reskinning a single stat block is simply not enough for you, we can graduate to the role of mad scientist and start combining multiple stat blocks. Just like with reskinning, you can start with an idea and match the stat blocks to it, or start with stat blocks and use those as inspiration for the idea. So if you know that you want to make a sexy slime girl, you can grab the succubus stat block and one of the ooze stat blocks, and then ask yourself some hard questions about why you're making your players participate in your sick little fantasies. Get help. Or you might already know what stat blocks you want to use and just need to figure out how to combine them. Like maybe you want to combine a Vrock and a troll. Why? Well, because I love Vrock and troll. Put another dime in the jukebox, baby. A Vrock is a vulture-like demon that can spread poisonous spores and stun enemies with a screech. And a troll is a misshapen giant that can regenerate. They're both kind of gross themed, so despite the fact that I'm only combining them for the pun, I think they're actually a pretty good fit. My favorite part of the Vrock is its stunning screech, and my favorite part of the troll is how when its limbs are severed, it can not only grow them back, but the severed limb becomes its own independent creature. So I'm gonna give the troll's loathsome limbs ability to the Vrock, but whenever one gets severed, the limb starts screaming. Sorry, should I be enjoying this less? Am I deviating too far from my wholesome cottagecore brand? Once you've picked your stat blocks, step 1 is to compare their challenge ratings. If they're not the same, you'll need to choose which CR you want for your final monster. In this case, the Vrock is CR 6 and the troll is CR 5. I want the final monster to be CR6, so anything I take from the troll stat block needs to be scaled up. I also recommend pulling the ability scores from whichever creature already has the CR you're aiming for. Next, decide which traits and abilities to keep from each monster. I like to go through both stat blocks and match up similar abilities by purpose, power level, action type, or whatever makes the most sense. Especially with complex stat blocks, pairing up abilities makes the process way less overwhelming. For example, both the troll and the Vrock have melee multi-attacks. Since they serve the same function, we'll be keeping the Vrock's version and skipping the troll's. Sorry, troll, looks like your rend attack just didn't make the cut. The Vrock has an ability called Demonic Restoration, which lets it regenerate in the abyss if it dies outside of it. But I want to use the troll's regeneration instead, so I'm dropping the fiend creature type and making this thing a good old-fashioned monstrosity. I'll remove Demonic Restoration and give it the troll's regeneration ability. Since the Vrock has about 50% more hit points than the troll, I'm increasing the regeneration from 15 to 22 hit points per round. Also, the troll's regeneration is blocked by acid and fire damage, but Vrocks are resistant to fire, so I'm removing that resistance to keep things consistent. The troll's severed limb effect and the Vrock's spore cloud are both pretty complex, so this is a pick one moment. Friendship ended with spores. Now, loathsome limbs are my best friend. I'm gonna use the same lazy math that I used for the hit points and increase the slashing damage required to sever a limb by 50%, taking it from 15 to 22. Everything else about this ability can stay the same. There are a few abilities that don't have a direct match. In those cases, I try to think about what the ability is for and whether or not it's still needed. For example, the troll has a charge bonus action that boosts mobility, but the Vrock already has 40 feet of movement and a 60-foot fly speed, so I think if I gave it bonus action movement too, I could be rightfully accused of overkill. On the other hand, the Vrock has magic resistance, which is a common trait for higher CR monsters, so I'm keeping that. Quit complaining, casters, you're still God's favorite princess. All that's left is the Vrock's Stunning Screech. I want to give this to the severed limbs. Since the Screech is a once per day ability and it takes some pretty specific circumstances to sever a limb, I think it works to just have the Screech trigger automatically when a limb is severed. The effect stays the same, it just becomes part of loathsome limbs. And that's it! We have created a horrifying new nightmare. We could call it a shriek spawn or a severant. But no matter what we call it, Billy Joel said it best. It's still Vrock control to me. Of course, you don't have to keep the vibes of either creature when you combine stat blocks. You could absolutely smash together a Vrock and a troll, and also reskin the whole mess into a mutant corrupted black dragon or something. Call that acid rock. There's one last homebrew hack that uses the same basic strategy as combining monsters, but instead of creating an ungodly abomination forged in the reckless pursuit of power by the fool who dares defy the laws of both God and man, you can use it to change a creature's challenge rating. So if you really want to use, say, a CR6 Chimera but your party is level 1, find a creature with a more appropriate challenge rating and similar strengths, like the CR2 Ankeg, and apply the Chimera's concept to the Ankeg's mechanics. For example, to recreate the Chimera's 3-pronged multi-attack, take the Ankeg's Bite, which deals an average of 13 damage, and split it into the Chimera's Bite, Claw, and Ram attacks. Each of those can deal 1d4 plus strength, or an average of 5 damage. You can also keep the prone effect from the Chimera's Ram attack as is. This ends up being slightly more total damage than the Ankeg's Bite, but the prone effect is a lot less dangerous than the Ankeg's ability to attack with advantage against grappled creatures. So overall, it all balances out. As for the Chimera's breath weapon, the Ankeg's Acid Spray is a perfect replacement. Just change the damage type to fire and you're good to go. You can do the exact same thing in reverse. If harpies are perfect for your story, but your players would hit a group of CR1 bird ladies like a freshly cleaned sliding glass door, grab a higher CR creature with similar strengths and use that as a model for scaling the harpy stat block up. Just a warning, if you make too big of a jump between challenge ratings, you can run into effects that behave very differently at different levels. For example, anything that reduces max HP is a lot more dangerous at low levels, even if you scale the damage. So maybe don't mash up a Tarask with a Flumph and expect everybody to still be your friend after. Come on, guys, I said I was sorry. Of course, I can talk about tactics until the drow come home, but the best way to supercharge your homebrew skills is to not just invent monsters, but actually use them at the table and see if they perform like you thought they would. Sometimes you're gonna get stuff wrong. That's not really a failure, it's just a part of learning. Every time you create a monster and use it in a game, you add a little XP to your homebrew skill bar. But be careful, because even though we love a learning moment, you don't want that learning moment to turn into a TPK. When you test out experimental game design at the table, table, you're taking a risk. So it's important that you also develop another skill, the ability to pivot and make changes on the fly during combat. Check out this video next to learn how to do that. Being able to responsively scale combat up or down in the moment is a skill that the best DMs have perfected. To quote Matt Colville, encounter design doesn't stop once initiative is called. And to quote Matt Berry, "You really are the most devious bastard in New York City."